But I'm going to talk to you today about beef production, looking forward and facing the challenges. We've heard some excellent talks this morning from processors, banks and supermarkets, but I think I'm going to address you more from a farm level. I'm just a very simple farmer. Most of you that know me will quantify that. But I think the changes that have happened in my business are something that can be rolled out across the board. And what works for me doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but it's just something that I'd like to share with you today. So I'm a family farmer in southwest Shropshire. We're a family partnership. We also supply free coffee as well. Walcott Farm is our home farm, which is 760 acres, and Partridge Farm is a contract farm, which I'll touch on in a minute. Currently, we've got 300 suckler cows plus followers, 1,200 breeding ewes, and I've been told as well that the conference doesn't mention sheep very much, so I'll talk slightly about our sheep enterprise a little bit later. We've got 800 acres of arable crops that my brother Rob manages, and I do the livestock, and that's how it keeps it pretty sweet, really. My father's actually on holiday at the moment, so I can happily say that he is retired. If he was here, I would say he's an integral part of our business. So every year we'd have our annual review to see how well we'd performed, and every year I came up with a different sort of a set of excuses why the cattle hadn't performed. One year it was cattle performance, it was scours, pneumonia, bad calving, infertile, bad bull. And he said to me one year, "You seem to have an awful lot of bad luck." So it was really then I decided that I need to alter what I was doing. I could see the problem with my herd was I had the wrong type of cow for my farm. So we were running limb cross Holstein cows, putting continental bulls on them, and we were producing attractive cattle for the market. On the face of it, it looked good. And it dawned on me really, I took a load of cattle into a local market, I took 70 bulls and 70 heifers, and I think I won a rosette with one and reserve in the other, and everyone was patting me on the back telling me what a good display of cattle I'd got and how well I'd got. And it was, as a young beef producer, it was quite a, accolade, and I felt really good about it. Then driving home, I looked at the rosette and I thought, who am I kidding? Because when I got home, I'd got a calf that I'd lost that morning. I'd got a cow down from the previous day from a bad calving. And things weren't exactly as they seemed. On the outside, everything seemed quite rosy. But on the farm side of it and the accountancy side of it, it didn't seem quite so good. And our system was very reliant on subsidy. And we seemed to be focusing too much on the end product. That was what was killing us. We were trying to produce the cattle that other people wanted. People saying, if you could produce more of these, it'd be great. But actually, it was what was causing ourselves to, lose money. And we had a lack of focus on costs. So by having to prove ourselves open accountancy, I had to change my mindset. So I need to change breeds, basically. And this coincided with a study tour to Cumbria, where I went to John Geldard's farm. And I call it my eureka moment, really. And I thank John for it, because we came across a stabiliser cattle, and many of you that know me will be surprised that I'm talking about stabiliser cattle today. But this is a composite breed, 50% British and 50% continental breeds mixed. It's a designer cow. It's a maternal breed. It's highly fertile with high growth rates, very easily managed, polled, and it's proving very profitable. So at the moment, we've got 180 spring calving cows, 130 autumn calving cows. We split the two herds over two farms just to help my management, really. And the aim is to produce a calf off every cow put to the bull. The focus on cow and bull fertility, we're now carrying out semen testing yearly on every single bull, and that's had a dramatic effect on our calving spread. In the past, we were blaming infertile cows, perhaps, and actually we were finding a lot of our bulls were subfertile. So, we were always blaming the woman, but actually in this case, it's most of the time it was the gents which weren't performing. We also entered a high health status through the SAC, and we cleared up BVD and Yonis and IBR and lepto, and we now vaccinate for all the clostridial diseases, and you name it, we're vaccinating for it, but it has had a huge effect on our output. And we're focused on 2-year calving, and basically we're trying to maximise efficiency off our farm. This is something that we've worked on, and I'm sure you've all seen this slide before, really. It's basically just showing that obviously the heavier a cow you get, the less efficient your cow is. So we're aiming really for a sort of 6 650 kilo cow to maximise efficiency, and that's something we're trying to do all the time really, is just increase the performance of our cows, which means we can keep more cows on less acres all the time. So we're just producing more beef off a certain acreage. So both herds, have I gone backwards now? Oh no. Both herds are now achieving a weaning rate consistently above 95% of cows put to the bull. Both herds are weaning over 50% of the cows' body weight at 200 days. And we're mainly targeting specific markets for bulling heifers and bulls and fattening bulls between 12 and 14 months. And this autumn we've got a lifetime carcass gain of 0.97 kilos, with bulls averaging 370 kilos at just over 12 months. So I don't know if you can all see this, but it says, what if we don't change at all and something magical happens? And I think, listening to the speakers here today, perhaps, that this could be what China's all about. I mean, if China happens, it'll be fantastic and we can export there and it'll get a lot of people out of trouble. But I don't think we can actually rely on the Chinese market getting us out of our problems or increasing the price of beef. And that's something I've realised, that the price of beef is quite out of our control, really. So, you know, I felt as a farmer, what factors can I influence, really? What can I change as a farmer on my own farm? So these were 5 things really that I looked at to improve pasture, which is probably the obvious one, increase the output, reduce my feed costs, improve eating and health quality, and reduce greenhouse gases. And looking at all those, it might not be apparent that as farmers we can affect those, but hopefully I can demonstrate a few ways in which we are trying to achieve this. Okay, improve my grassland. It's something that I've struggled with. Our farm is mainly permanent pastures, and it's not always easy, really, to improve permanent pasture. But with modern techniques and roundupping and slot seeding and overseeding and different varieties, we're trying to get there. But it's also proving more difficult as well in HLS schemes where you can't plough or things like that. But, you know, we're seeing the potential from it. And just well-managed, correctly fertilised pasture containing productive grasses and clovers can produce a huge amount. And the potential can produce 10 to 11 tonnes of dry matter a hectare on grazing ground, or 13 to 14 tonnes a hectare on silage ground. This equates really to 110 big bales a hectare a year, and that's 3,600 kilos of live weight of beef or lamb. You know, these are numbers which we can all improve on our farms, I'm sure, and I certainly can. Newer varieties can boost production from permanent pasture over 5 years by just over £1,100 over 5 years a hectare. That's after reseeding costs. And it dawned on me really, we focused, we've got a grazing group just set up, a March's grazing group, and as a guinea pig they came to me first, and I did take them to some of my worse fields, shall we say, and I didn't think I was doing a bad job. The cattle looked well and the sheep looked, you know, average, and I thought people would just mainly comment on the stock, which they usually do. But to be honest, they ripped me apart. They completely trashed my grassland management and told me what I was doing was pretty useless, to be honest. And although it was quite a hard hit to take at the time, and we had a lot of banter over it, which I'm looking forward to giving back at some point, I went home afterwards and I thought, actually, that's brilliant, because it makes me realise how much more potential I've got. You know, I think I'm doing all right as it is, but the potential my grassland holds with proper management, you know, how much more I can achieve. And thinking about it, I think I can probably get 50% more production off my grassland than what I'm doing. So now I'm going to bore you a bit with some facts and numbers, whatever. But this is just our bull beef system. Traditionally, we were either selling the stores or we were castrating the animals and running them around for a second summer, or fattening them, you know, doing a fairly traditional way. But actually, we've devised a system with bull beef. And I know bull beef's nothing new, but some of these figures, and these have come from SAC, just by doing bull beef, you can keep an extra 30 more cows on the same amount of land. Just because you're not having to graze those bullocks out in the summer, those steers out in the summer, and you're not having to conserve the grass those summer. Obviously, as we'll see, you've got a lot higher costs in concentrate costs, but your output costs will be so much more. So this just shows how much more concentrates you're using. I mean, this is based at £170 a tonne of dry matter, and obviously there's a huge cost there. But when you see the next slide, we can just see how much more tonnes of meat are produced from exactly the same system just by keeping more cows, really. I won't go too actually into the details. Obviously, these will be on the website later, but 30% more carcass sold for an extra 31,000. Extra concentrate cost is 19,500, and that leaves us with extra profit just by doing bull beef as opposed to steers. So obviously the processors in the room will probably be, pulling their hair out thinking, everyone's going to convert to bull beef, and there's quite a big, about the quality of bull beef, and in the past people have underestimated the quality of it and the eating quality and the dark cutting aspects of producing bulls. But actually we're proving now that by managing bulls well and effectively that this is possible. So the next slide here shows some meat eating quality versus bulls versus steers. So this was done at JSR Food Quality Centre. So the cooking losses from bulls is slightly higher, but two measurements of tenderness are the slice shear force test and the Marin's bite force. And actually these bulls have come out exceedingly well, and they exceeded our expectations. This is all due to the age of the animals. I mean, these animals were between 12 and 14 months old, between 320 and 370 kilo carcasses, and they were R4L. And I think that's probably the fundamental aspect of this, is the fact that these animals carried, a certain amount of fat content. Traditionally bulls can easily get this weight, no problem at all by that age, fair enough. But actually by carrying the extra fat, the tenderness is very good as well. Next slide is about fat levels. The fat levels of beef, and it's all been in the press lately about the eating qualities and the health aspects and all the health scares that we hear about eating beef. But actually this is something else which surprised us all, really. The total fat and saturated fats, anything below 3%, 3 kilos per 100 grams, is deemed as low fat. And you can see the fat profiles, a lot of these bulls are actually very low. And the unsaturated fats are also very low. When doing a bit of research on this, we looked at chicken as well. Chicken usually comes out, grilled chicken breast with the skin removed, you would see as probably the healthiest meat, the lowest fat content. But that was actually coming out at nearer 2% and 0.6 on the unsaturated fats. So actually, as bull beef, we've got a unique product that's also, very healthy, it's tender, and I think, as an industry, we can make a lot more of this. Just because if you were getting bored of facts and figures and charts, I throw you some cows, and they also come in black as well. This slide here, I put the enemy, but I could have changed it. I was going to change it to the competition. And I think we've got a lot to learn from chicken and the poultry and the pig sector. They really can set as an example for us as beef and lamb producers at how we can take our business forward, really. As you can see, the genetic potential that the poultry industry has used, you can just see there the amount of growth that's been achieved in sort of that length of time. This is the starkest thing, really. In 1963, it was 12 weeks to slaughter. In 2013, it's 5 weeks. Food conversion ratio was 4-1, and now it's 1.6-1. So you imagine how much less feed they're using to produce a kilo of chicken. And this is something that, through the stabilisers, we're trying to roll out, really. So this is the net feed efficiency unit up at Wold Farm, up at Givendale in Yorkshire. And these bulls are measured for feed efficiency. So all those bunkers there measure exactly how much feed each animal is used, and then we were trying to develop, out of 80 bulls on test every year, which animals are the most efficient. And some stark results are coming out of it, and at the moment we're seeing savings of £100 per cow-calf unit within these results. The whole idea of the net feed efficiency is to breed herds of cows. It's a slightly different process to feed conversion ratio. Net feed efficiency takes in a maintenance value for these cows as well. So when we're building up a cow herd, we need to find cows that maintain their body weight. We don't want cows to increase in size. So from a farmer point of view, I thought, how can I demonstrate this? But buy a new bull, to produce replacements for your herd, which bull would you choose, A or B? Obviously, from their weights, they're very similar. They're both unassisted. Yearling weight slightly better. Daily live weight gains, very similar again. You'd probably opt for bull B. Just look at those figures and a bit of personal preference. But when you take into account their feed intake, we can see that bull B eats 2.5 more times more feed required for bull B. He's eating 4,124 kilos of dry matter more, which is costing £494 more to feed over a year. This equates to a feed conversion of 4:1 as opposed to 10:1. And because feed conversion is a highly heritable trait, it allows you to keep 112 cows on the same amount of ground compared to 75, which is 33% more output, which can be the same as profit. You know, you put that into pounds and pence, bull A will produce 112 cows, 96% weaning rate, 107 calves, £1,200, that's 128,000. Well, bull B, it speaks for itself, 75 cows, 96% weaning, 72 at £1,200, 86,000. That's a difference of 42,000. You know, don't get too hung up on these figures, and I'm sure people pull me up on them. These are just examples of proving the point of feed efficiency. Greenhouse gas emissions is something as well that we, you know, how can farmers affect greenhouse gas? We're told that we should, and everything like this. This is just a simple point of view showing bull-based systems over steer-based systems, just about the carbon produced from a bull system to a steer system. And I know a lot of farmers out there in the industry are very sceptical of climate change, and whether it's right or wrong, whether you agree with it or not, we can argue here all day. But actually the two go hand in hand in the sense of the more efficient we become, the more profit we make, and also the less carbon we produce. So whether you believe in it or not, it's a good thing to try and achieve. So as a farmer, what can I change? So I've produced more grass, newer varieties. I've made an extra, you know, £1,100 over a 5-year period just by reseeding. Increased output from bull beef, 30% more carcass weight sold for an extra 30,000, 11,000 more profit. I've reduced feed costs. I'm grazing more cows on the same amount of land, 30% more output. Eating quality has improved, and I produced a healthy product. And also, I reduced greenhouse gases and emissions. So, to summarise it all up, really, hopefully we can all be profitable farmers, producing high quality, healthy beef, helping to save the planet. Thank you.